beginning of double tracking, putting in an extra track to help accommodate the increased train traffic going forward. And the same with the Scarborough subway extension. This is merely an extension of the Bloor-Danforth subway line, but it is going to make a huge difference, not only to the lives of people who live in Scarborough and are trying to get to other parts of the city, but it will also make a huge difference. And I'm willing to make a wager on this. It'll make a huge difference in terms of attracting jobs and investment to Scarborough. For a long time, there haven't been new office buildings built in Scarborough so that we can have jobs in Scarborough close to where people in Scarborough live. So that people in Scarborough will have the same opportunity to be close to where they work as do people who live, for example, downtown or in North York. And I believe that the advent of this subway is going to attract people who will invest in building new office buildings and new places to live very close to the Scarborough Civic Centre. And this is going to be a big boost for Scarborough, a big benefit to the people who live and work in Scarborough, and create lots of new jobs in Scarborough. I should just say that in the last couple of days there has been circulating some very misleading information that I think could only have scared people into thinking that they might lose the Scarborough RT as a means of transportation while we are building the Scarborough subway and Smart Track. This is absolutely not true. The Scarborough RT will continue to run. There has been extensive work done by the engineers of both Metrolinx and the TTC to make sure that the Scarborough RT can continue to run. The fact is, I should tell you, that the place where that story was written to indicate that the Scarborough RT might close down, that was based on an old email, and in fact the media in question had access to the engineers who told them that there had been a solution found. So how the story ended up the way it did, I don't know. But the bottom line is simply this: the Scarborough RT will remain open while Smart Track is being built, while the Smart Track stations are being built, and while the Bloor-Danforth Scarborough subway extension is being built. Now, building more transit is the long-term solution for fixing traffic, but we also recognize there are things we have to do in the meantime while those transit projects are being built, because transit takes quite a long time to build, we know that, and it also is a priority for people to keep moving around the city in the meantime. And that is why every single year, since I've held this job, we update the city's congestion plan. I should tell you that in the 2018 budget, in addition to the measures I've talked about for transit and the other investments that are being made in a number of other areas, including recreation spaces, childcare, and keeping taxes low at the same time, we have $9 million specifically allocated to fight traffic on the streets of Toronto. This includes, for example, $1.6 million to hire 16 traffic wardens. These are people who are not police officers, and therefore they're less expensive for the taxpayers than police officers, but they will be people who will have the power to direct traffic and, if necessary, to issue tickets. And I think this is a move in the right direction for us to make sure we're not using the time of highly trained police officers to do things like direct traffic, but at the same time we have somebody who will do it. Because directing traffic, we have proven that many of the worst intersections in the city can make a big difference to keeping people safe and keeping traffic moving. We've allocated almost $500,000 for 2 quick clear squads. These are groups of men and women who go out immediately upon the cameras or other forms of information being made available saying there's a stalled car on the Gardiner Expressway or the Parkway or one of our major arterial roads. There's a stalled car. As simple a thing as a stalled car can often cause hours of traffic delay in the next few hours after that. And the sooner we get those stalled cars out of there with these quick clear squads that are devoted to doing that, the better traffic will move. Pardon me. We've also allocated $2.7 million to buy more smart traffic signals. Again, the first ones have been installed on Yonge Street. The second group will be installed on Shepherd Avenue in Scarborough. These are signals that actually themselves read the traffic. And depending on what they observe with regard to the flow of the traffic, they change themselves to accelerate and maximize the flow of traffic. So it should do away with those instances many of us have faced where we'll be sitting at a red light, noticing that the cross street in front of us has a green light, but there are no cars there. And so it should do away with that, but we're installing the first set. They have been installed on Yonge Street. The second set are being installed as soon as the winter months are over in Scarborough on Shepherd Avenue. So these are some of the kinds of common sense things we're doing to try and address traffic in the city, and we've got the budget allocated to do that, as well as increased funding this year to make sure that pedestrians remain safe. We have in place, as you may know, a Vision Zero, and the purpose of the number 0 is to make it very clear to us and to the public what the number is that we're striving for, which is 0 deaths, and for that matter, if we could get to 0 injuries as well, to pedestrians, so that we can have a safe city. So that gives you just a partial indication of what the budget contained this year. It is a budget that tries to keep Toronto affordable. I should say this to you. I was faced as the mayor, together with the budget chief, Gary Crawford, Councillor Gary Crawford from Scarborough, with many people who were advocating that we should increase taxes a lot more than by the rate of inflation. We had other people stand up at the very same city council meeting and say we should freeze taxes and not increase them at all. I chose a middle course. I chose a balanced course that said we will keep the city affordable with an inflation increase in property taxes, but at the same time, we will make sure through efficiencies and through that small bit of extra money we take from that tax increase, we will invest in people, in recreation spaces, in childcare, in traffic measures, in transit, in housing, the things that people need. And so we haven't managed to achieve, I believe, that balance where we've made significant new investments in the people and in the city of Toronto at the same time as we've held the line on taxes to try and keep the city affordable. And I'm proud of that balance, and that's a balance that I will continue to represent. And I will just close by saying that when you look, and I invite you to do this, at the commentary written by our rating agencies, the credit rating agencies that assess the financial management of Toronto, because they advise the people who lend us money to finance the building of transit and so on the credit worthiness of Toronto. And they have commented in their most recent report that they believe the city is responsibly and well managed financially. And I intend, if I'm privileged enough to keep this job, to make sure that continues to be the case, because I think that is fair to the people of Toronto as well, and keeps the city affordable by making sure that we don't spend too much money and face higher interest rates as a result. So I'm happy to answer your questions as you wish.
Hey, Mayor. So how was the police budget this year? In this year?
The police budget this year, the police budget this year was for the second year in a row held flat at about $1 billion. And I say held flat in the sense that I am one of those who is a lead proponent, and it's supported by the chief of police and by the Police Services Board, in saying that the answer to making sure the city stays one of the safest in the world is not more money in and of itself. It is finding better ways to use police officers. So when I say that we've hired 16 traffic wardens to direct traffic, that should relieve the police service of a lot of that burden of directing traffic, and mean those police officers, without hiring extra ones, can go and do what I'll call more important police work. I should say the budget contains money this year to hire 80 new police officers at least. We're committed to hiring those 80. Many of them are being trained now to take up their position on the police service. And so I think by watching very carefully, as the chief is doing, as I'm doing, how many police officers we have, we can make sure that as we flatline the budget at $1 billion, we are also making sure that there are the resources in place for the police service to continue to do their job and keep the city as safe as it is.
Mayor, a follow-up for the police. Is there any way to release more police resources from standing on the road to direct traffic when there's a pothole or in construction? It seems to be quite a waste of manpower.
I hope if the police warden initiative works and the first 16 prove to be a big success in directing traffic, we could also consider using those police officers for some of the kinds of construction projects that we have, for example, when we're digging up the road. And I think people will understand why there has to be somebody there to watch traffic and watch pedestrians to make sure we don't have accidents caused by the construction. But at the same time, I'm not sure it has to be a highly trained police officer that could be off dealing with bigger matters in the communities. And so the answer to your question is, yes, it is our intention to continuously review these things. And if the traffic warden's initiative is a success, I'm sure it will be expanded to provide for a more cost-effective way to keep people safe and to keep people moving.
So if everything going smoothly, when the Scarborough subway extension will start construction?
I have obviously been trying to push this project forward and make sure that it doesn't get delayed by people who want to delay it. There are many who even want to cancel it. And they want to cancel it for a variety of reasons. I think a lot of it, quite frankly, has to do with politics.
Yeah.
But my objective is to keep this moving forward. We voted on it more than 10 times now at the City Council. The planning work is well underway. The design work is well underway. There have been discussions about the bus terminal at the end of the Scarborough Civic Centre, at the end of the subway extension. And I think if we're able to stay on schedule, which I think is a function of our determination to do so, but also making sure people in this place recognize it's going forward because it's been approved so many times, I think the in-service date was meant to be around 2026. And I know that seems like it's a long way away, but if you look back at the history of the Spadina subway extension that was just opened, it took about that same period of time, from 2009 to 2017, to finish that, and I think these are big projects that take a long time. So that is the objective. I should say one more thing. I have asked the CEO of the TTC, and I've asked our city manager to come back to me with some advice on how we can make sure we speed up all of the transit projects in the city of Toronto, if it's possible. And that includes the Bloor-Danforth-Scarborough subway extension. It includes the relief line, which will provide a lot of relief for people coming from the eastern part of the city going downtown. It includes SmartTrack. And I hope they'll be back to me to indicate what help they need, what people they need, what else they need to keep these moving forward. And I hope those who have been trying their best to sometimes slow down some of these transit projects will recognize that once you've had a project approved, any project, multiple times at the City Council, it's time to move forward and build it and not to continue to have debates at City Hall. Part of the problem we have today with transit and the lack of transit is because there's been a lot more time spent having debates down here than there has been spent actually getting on with building transit.
So in terms of the 2 hours free ride for public transit, when can we start? Because we're supposed to start early, right, at the beginning of this year. Were there any argument in terms of this topic?
No. The reason for the time that it'll take between now and about August, when I think this should be implemented, is because it is going to use the Presto card to help people get on and off. And they have to change some of the software associated with the Presto card. And while you might think they could do the software change overnight, things are never that simple. And so they've told us, in terms of a time when they've really given me their guarantee it will be ready, they've said August. And so I would rather have them do it properly and make sure it works than hurry it up. And so August will be the time when the hop-on, hop-off transfer should be available to all of the people who ride on the TTC. And that work is being done by the Presto people right now.
So another question is, you mentioned at the Chinese New Year event, actually this year is China Tourism Year, and the opening ceremony will be in Toronto. Are there any activities the city will be involved in the celebration? Or?
Yes, the City of Toronto, through its kind of sister agency, Tourism Toronto, it's not run by us, but we're certainly partners with Tourism Toronto. They have a number of activities this year, both to promote tourism in China to get people to come, but also when they're here to welcome them. And I'm sure at the opening ceremonies they will indicate some of the initiatives that are being taken both to welcome people here and also to make sure they're encouraged to come by marketing efforts that we make in China itself. I can only say that I notice, just as a person who's all over the city all the time, but also even when I'm in my office sitting at my desk, and I'm so gratified by so many thousands of Chinese people coming to visit us here. I see them coming to the City Hall, and I just hope they continue to come because they're very important. One of our fastest growing, if not the fastest growing group of tourists coming to Toronto are represented by people coming from China. And I hope that many other people take the opportunity that I have done to go to China. I've had the privilege of being in China twice, and I hope soon to make it 3 times. It won't be this year because it's election year, but I hope after that I can go back because not only is it an opportunity to see a historic and welcoming and amazingly enterprising country, but it's also an opportunity to understand an incredible history that goes back, far longer than our formal history as a federated country here in Canada. And it's just interesting to learn about that and learn about all those traditions and things that have been brought to this country by so many hundreds of thousands of Chinese Canadians.
Well, Mr. Mayor, question. As this year is 2018. Can you explain why the TTC riders still couldn't use their cell phone network during their riding?
Yes, I can explain that, and I'm not complaining about this or I'm not being critical of it. I'm simply going to tell you the facts. A number of years ago, the TTC signed a contract with a company that I think is based in Australia and gave them the rights to build out the infrastructure on the tunnels and the stations to allow Wi-Fi to be universal across the system. That company has been doing its work, but they then have to sign agreements in turn with the cellular phone, the mobile phone providers, Bell, Rogers, TELUS, and so on. They've only signed an agreement with one, and that's Freedom. mobile. So if you're a Freedom customer, you will get quite a bit more Wi-Fi service in the subway now, including in the new section that was just opened, complete service in all the tunnels for phone and for data. But agreements have not yet been signed with the other companies. Those are discussions that I understand are ongoing, but I've certainly made it very clear, as I will again today. I want the people of Toronto, the transit commuters of Toronto, to have, as soon as possible, full access to Wi-Fi in the subway system, in the tunnels, in the stations, because I think it's just part of our way of life. If for nothing else, it allows you, if you're on the subway and you're perhaps tied up a few minutes, to send somebody a message to say you're going to be late. It allows you to, if you want to play games on the subway while you're riding along to work, it allows you to answer your email. And I think these are just people's expectations as to what they should be able to do everywhere nowadays, and the subway is no exception. Any other questions?
Hi, Mayor. The Chinese New Year is this Friday. Would you mind to say something to our viewer in China about the Chinese New Year?
Well, I will only say, first of all, this is the limitation of my ability to speak in the Chinese language, Kan Hai Fat Choi. And that greeting to wish people a happy Lunar New Year comes with my incredible gratitude and affection and respect for the Chinese Canadian communities that we have here in Toronto, and in the Toronto area. There's hundreds of thousands of people with a Chinese background who have become Canadians and residents of Toronto, and it also extends to all the people in China who are celebrating the New Year, who we have such a great bond, a great historic bond with between the countries of Canada and China. So Kan Hai Fat Choi, Happy New Year to everybody who is celebrating the New Year. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.